How will enrich their service to Srila Prabhupada? They'll understand they're servants of Srila Prabhupada's International Society for Krishna Consciousness. And Srila Prabhupada Society is the one society that is meant for changing the misdirected lives of an impious civilization. In other words, creating a revolution in the world. There's many other Krishna Conscious societies, Gaudiya Maths, etc. But these societies will never be grow to the same extent as Srila Prabhupada Society or have as their vision to change the world. So you'll be part of a great mission to actually save the world. Isn't that the best thing? You know, we should have that spirit. Our mission is not simply to save ourselves, but to save the world. People should be thinking like that. Not simply my own Krishna consciousness, but Srila Prabhupada stated that, and of course Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, so many statements like that. Like there's one statement by Srila Prabhupada that we want devotees like Arjuna, not simply sit-down devotees. We want fighters for Krishna consciousness. And there's statements by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati to the same extent, that we want those devotees who go out and preach Krishna consciousness as the most important service. How do I practically study Srila Prabhupada's books? When I read Srila Prabhupada's books, I take notes and outline them. Everybody knows what an outline is. That means a Roman numeral 1, then A, then a 1, and then a little a under that. So the reason I do it that way is because I teach. You know, because I'm going around the world preaching Krishna consciousness. Naturally, I have to teach Srila Prabhupada's books. So whenever I'm preparing for teaching or for a course, I'll use this system of outlining. And if one teaches, it forces one to read too. It's very important to teach, because if you don't teach, there's no impetus to remember. You know, there's this one statement that if you simply study something, you learn a little bit. And if you practice it, you learn a little more. But if you preach it, you learn it totally. So that should be part of Bhakti Shastri too. Not simply you sit and memorize some verses or regurgitate some information, but you learn how to preach to the other members of the class. I don't know if they do that in Bhakti Shastri here, but that should be done, because that's practical realization. I remember when I was in a Gurukula once, I wasn't a student in the Gurukula, obviously, but I was seeing that the students were learning all these verses from Bhagavad Gita. They could remember the Sanskrit and the English, but when I asked them about how to apply those verses, none of them knew. And the teacher kept telling me, well, it's very nice they learn them, but I don't see much value in learning something, rote learning, unless you learn application. I teach one course in teaching. It's called the Laws of the Learner course. And the first thing we learn in the course is that teaching should be done according to application. 80% of whatever you're teaching should be taught in terms of how you're going to apply it. And if you take the VTE, they'll teach you that same thing. That at least when you're finished teaching a particular session, you end with application. Well, first of all, they're connected with Prabhupada. You begin to understand fully Srila Prabhupada's exalted position as a representative of the transparent via media between Krishna and the living entity. And once one understands Srila Prabhupada's exalted position, one comes to the understanding that one is a servant of Srila Prabhupada. Because without that concept of servitude, then there's no actual surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I was thinking about this morning. You know, sometimes people leave the International Society for Krishna Consciousness and they say, well, I also accept this guru and that guru, apart from Prabhupada, of course. But then I understand that there is no surrender on that person's part. Because in order to surrender to Krishna, you need to focus on the founder Acharya. You know, if you focus on this guru and you can pick and choose, you know, which guru's instructions you'll take at a particular time or which guru you'll be devoted to, then you never really surrender to Krishna. Because surrender to Krishna means you have to pick one via media, and specifically for all the members of the Krishna Consciousness movement, that's His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Srila Prabhupada. Well, I think I explained that already. The importance is that you come in contact with Prabhupada because Prabhupada is transparent. We come in contact with Krishna. Every word in Srila Prabhupada's books has the complete knowledge in it. Like Srila Prabhupada said, you can do a class or many classes even on each word, each phrase in his books. And it has the complete knowledge and realization of Krishna consciousness. So you're actually directly contacting Krishna by the study of Srila Prabhupada's books. Well, Srila Prabhupada said, first of all, in regard to book distribution, that studying his books was more important than distributing his books. So sometimes we find devotees who place more importance on distributing than studying. But Srila Prabhupada said, if someone doesn't read his books regularly, they will go away from the Krishna Consciousness movement. So that is Srila Prabhupada's own statement about that, yeah. Everyone. Everyone who wants to make progress in Krishna consciousness should study the Bhakti Shastri course. Somehow or other. And as we mentioned before, either here in Mayapur, which is a very nice situation, or in Vrindavan, or if someone has many responsibilities in this world, they can perhaps do it online, or go to Radhadesh, or their local temple that has some arrangement, but it's an extremely important course. Well, the interesting thing is about study habits, unless you have some particular vow that you stick to, or some curriculum that, let's say, you've ascribed to or you've committed to, then you're not likely to study on a regular basis. That's what I've seen. Like if you say, well, you should just study on your own, people generally don't have that determination to do that. So they generally need some discipline situation. Discipline not in a bad sense, but discipline in the sense that they've committed to a particular number of hours a day, a particular situation, a particular number of weeks. And this helps one dive deeply into Srila Prabhupada's books. You know, I've met a number of devotees who've been in the movement 10, 20 years who haven't even read the books I just mentioned. You know, the Bhagavad Gita. Maybe they've read the Bhagavad Gita once, and maybe they haven't read Nectar of Devotion completely, or understood Nectar of Devotion, and they certainly haven't read, in many cases, the Nectar of Instruction, and what to speak of the Upanishad. So, I mean, it's quite remarkable. And then many of these devotees want classes or instruction on higher topics in Krishna consciousness without going through the ABCs. And this is actually very dangerous for our society. That depends how seriously they take the study. I mean, one can just study and remember things, and it may not have that much impact, but if they practice and they teach those things, then they'll integrate those particular studies in their own lives. So the question is integrating what you learn, not simply rote learning. You have this list of needs, both material needs and spiritual needs and emotional needs and psychological needs. And you go through the list and you think about your needs. But basically, if you're having any feelings, like happy feelings, sad feelings, of course those are general categories, you should connect those to the needs. Especially if you have some feelings that are unpleasant. Let's say anger or frustration or anything like that. Think, why am I frustrated? Why am I angry? What is the need that is not being fulfilled? Because those particular needs that cause us pain, that cause us pain are indicative of needs that are not being fulfilled. And we should take responsibility for fulfilling those needs. Of course, that's not part of the video, hopefully. Anyway, your video, and that's okay. Okay?
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.